Hello, and welcome to this episode of Moments in Credit Union History, sponsored by CUNA Mutual. It's my pleasure today to welcome Dan MICUH to our show. Dan is a former U.S. Congressman who was the president and CEO of the Credit Union National Association for 14 years. He assumed his duties at CUNA in 1996, and it was under Dan's leadership that CUNA became one of the highest respected and most influential associations in Washington. He's credited with raising the visibility and presence of credit unions in Washington, building a powerful grassroots lobbying structure for credit unions before the Congress, and developing new and innovative products to help credit unions serve their members. Now, before I introduce Dan, I want to tell you this is a little bit like my night at the museum moment, where the people that are part of the exhibits and the fabric of the museum come to life. This is Dan for me today. I walk by exhibits that have Dan's picture on them every day, and today we have him in person. So welcome, Dan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Stephanie. So good to be here. And I didn't know CUNA Mutual was sponsoring this, but they've done a magnificent job in supporting the entire credit union movement for as long as I've known.
Absolutely. A rich history for sure. A rich history. So you were in D.C. For about 14 years with CUNA, and I know during that time, one of the probably big moments was HR 1151. And as you mentioned before we came on camera, the day that the credit union music almost died. Sounds like maybe the beginning of a rom-com, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad you asked about that. And it is something that goes through my mind every so often and whenever there's a challenge to the credit union system. But I'm going to try to just summarize it quickly. I think everyone probably knows that the credit unions were challenged in court about having select employee groups. And at one time, you could only have one group with one common bond of membership. But AT&T Credit Union in North Carolina expanded that to a number of groups. The bankers sued. We lost the suit. We appealed it. We won the suit. We lost the suit at the Supreme Court. And we were in a bind because we were told that if the suit were allowed to stand, if we didn't get legislation to change it, we probably would have lost millions, maybe as much as a third or more of the credit union membership would have to be canceled in the United States. That caused a panic button and a call to action to credit unions. And I must say at the start, the leagues and the league system were really the heroes in this story. We were counting down the days till we maybe had to start that termination of all our credit union members, and we had legislation before the Congress. It had hearings in the various committees, and we were on the final few days where they were about to have a vote on the committee. And this was the Banking and Finance Committee in the House of Representatives first. And to make a long story very short, we were right down to the point where they were about to vote. And the members of the committee were called to the floor of the House to go vote on legislation. So the chairman adjourned the committee. Everyone left. He said we'd be back in 15 minutes for the vote. And he came over to me and said, this was Chairman Jim Leach. He said, Dan, you don't have the votes. And you're missing this by at least one or two votes. And if you don't do something, your opponents back there have a whole list of amendments that will dismantle the credit union movement. So on the first vote, if you lose it, there will be a half dozen more to dismantle the credit union movement. It was near panic time. But I will say again, many of the important leagues were in the room, the league presidents, and one was Mike Mercer. He was from Georgia, and the speaker was Newt Gingrich, who did support us. And Mike heard the conversation, and he called the speaker. To this day, we're not sure what the speaker did or didn't do, but apparently he contacted a few members on the Republican side. The vote was called, and we won by one vote. One vote, and we would have lost the credit union movement in my mind, and that's what the chairman of the committee told me was about to happen. All right, fast forward to the Senate. Similar situation, down to the end, And there were 9 members, I believe, on the banking committee, maybe 10, 4 and 4 or 5 and 5, Democrats and Republicans. The chairman was Al D'Amato of New York. He called the roll. There were 4 Democrats in favor of the legislation and 4 Republicans against the legislation. The deciding vote was up to the chairman. And if the chairman voted with us, he had to vote against 4 members of his own party. There was a long pause, and he voted yes. And we won by 1 vote. And, that's the story of how we almost lost the credit union movement. And I would say the happy ending was we won on the full floor of the Senate, 92-6. And on the full floor of the House, 411-8. We had widespread support in both the House and Senate. But the bankers had succeeded in lobbying and getting the support of key members of the 2 committees that almost put an end to our movement. So that's what I call the day that credit unions almost died.
It's incredible to think that 1 vote in each vote was the deciding factor. And I think that it's a great illustration of how, people involved in credit unions, you make a difference. And it's a great story. So thank you for sharing.
Well,
I know that
the league. I want to thank the leagues. They
absolutely.
Just before that vote, Chairman D'Amato called me and said, I need support. I need you to get some people from my district, from the state of New York, and anywhere else you can, on the steps of the Capitol in, I think it was less than a week. Let me tell you, every single state, all 50 states, all 50 state leagues brought people. We had over 8,000 people there for a rally on the steps. The Hawaii delegation got their own plane and flew in, and Chairman D'Amato brought out members of the committee and other senators to see the size of the rally that was put together in less than a week. So again, my hat goes off to the leagues and the work they've done. And I'm just honored to be the CEO and leader of the system at the time and watch this magic work.
I know that from the perspective of the museum, the exhibit that we have on HR 1151, as well as supporting collateral materials we have, it is still one of the most requested exhibits, and it's what people still are researching. It's irrelevant today, so I think it's terrific to hear the story from your perspective, having been there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So also in Washington, D.C., it's my understanding that a little project called Credit Union House happened during your tenure as well.
Yes, and I'm very proud of that. And again, that's another story of where the leagues, and coincidentally, Mike Mercer of Georgia played a role in that. I'm not singling him out as my favorite. He's a good guy, but he was president of the League Association at the time. We had just won 1151, and a member of Congress had told me, well, credit unions are probably going to fold up their tents and go back to their little credit unions, and we won't hear again from them unless there's another crisis. And I said, no, we're going to have a constant presence in Washington. And I had been talking with Carol Beach, who was the president then of the Colorado League, about a concept that I had become aware of called Florida House, which, by the way, is right around the corner from Credit Union House, a very similar building, very similar purpose. And I was one of the original members of that as a Florida congressman when it first started out. And Carol thought it was a great idea because during the battle, 1151, we were bringing thousands of people to Washington every week for weeks and weeks and weeks. And every time we rented a hotel room or a ballroom to house these people and have meetings, they charged us thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. And I said, I think we ought to have something like Florida House. We ought to have a credit union house. It can be a place where credit union members go. It can be an event facility for credit unions. It can be an event facility for members of Congress. and it can be a war room if we ever have this again. And we keep a constant present in Washington. Fast forward, we're in Hawaii at a league meeting. We had won the battle. Everybody was in great spirit. And I was about to give my remarks to the group of league presidents. And Mike Mercer was the president of the group, the chairman of the leagues. And then backstage, he said, "Hey, Mica, give him one of those vision speeches, maybe something about that credit union house you were talking about." And I must say, I kind of took it as a little humorous, but a bit of a challenge. And I thought, well, I'll do a little bit of the Martin Luther King, "I Have a Dream." And I admit now I didn't then, but I hammed it up a great deal. And I said, "I have a vision. I have a vision." And I spelled out this vision of a house on the hill, a beacon for credit unions, a place where members of Congress would see it and know that we're always there, a place where we could come. And I went on and on and on with it, kind of a rousing, and in my mind, it was half humorous, but it was serious. I was making a point. Now, to be clear, I had no plans, no approval from the board, no nothing. It was just a kind of a rally call to see if anyone was interested. As soon as I finished the speech, there was just a loud round of applause, and Carol Beach stood up and said, "I've heard about this idea. I support it 100%, and I pledge X $1,000. I forget what it was, but it was a lot of money." He said, "I'm going to pass around a legal pad, and I want every league president to pledge something." I believe, I'll have to check with Carol Beach, in that quick moment, leagues pledged over $1 million to build Credit Union House, and we were off and running, and we've never looked back. And by the way, Credit Union House was built from scratch on an empty lot. A lot of people think it's an old building, but we built it to look like a traditional building, and it's been a great investment financially for the leagues.
That's incredible. It's sort of the field of dreams, if you will. If you build it, they will come.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're huge fans of Credit Union House, and they have such a significant role in Washington, D.C., and we're happy to partner with them in lots of different ways.
Between Credit Union House and the Credit Union Museum, our movement is very fortunate to have its history set in place for a long, long time in the future.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your time today, Dan. Thanks for being part of our show. This was another moment in credit union history, sponsored by CUNY Mutual Group. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.